All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first kickoff call for the Strong and Lean Systems membership. Just a quick recap. Who is this membership for and what is our mission? This is for women over the age of 35 who want to build strength and muscle, as well as some internal strength in order to feel and look better with each passing year. Two things that we do in our community in order to accomplish this sustainably. We focus on habit building based on brain science. You get some information, some information, some education, but mostly implementation. What does that mean? Less knowing, more actually doing. Leveraging your psychology to do the new thing and learning to lower friction over time. What does lowering friction look like? Oftentimes, the hardest part is starting. So, once we are able to lower that friction based on some tips and tricks for behavior change, based on behavior change science, then the ability to start feels so much less hard. So, we work on that. We learn tips to beat procrastination, and there is sort of a science to this. It's not tricky, but it's very helpful for procrastinating. A lot of women procrastinate their workouts. These are all normal things, they're not character flaws. A lot of these things require unlearning some unhelpful and embedded beliefs that we are not necessarily aware of, beliefs about that women tend to have based on our self worth, external expectations, marketing, having us believe that food and exercise is punishment based on diet culture. And so that's the first thing that we do in our community. Secondly, we learn systems. Why systems? It seems like such a generic term, but once you learn a system, you keep repeating it over and over. And then once you repeat them over and over, they start to automate. When you run a system on autopilot, we're no longer having to spend a lot of time and energy, meaning cognitive bandwidth, on our health. So, what's happened in the past is when we committed to programs and diets, we burned through a lot of our time and energy currencies, and we didn't even know it. Time and energy are currencies, they are not finite. So, things like 2 hours of meal prep on the weekend, not to mention the food shopping and the money, making ourselves a separate meal other than our family, extreme calorie cuts where we either suffered through hunger or had to end up thinking about food all day long that just eats through cognitive bandwidth. Um, Skipping on sleep, waking up early to grind through long workouts. When time and energy currencies are used up front, later on there's nothing left is when we tend to burn out and quit, and then even worse, we blame ourselves and our discipline. So this is more of a practical and efficient system. It's not sexy, but it works. It's not a quick fix, it's a lifelong system, so you can finally stop the start stop cycle, that losing and then regaining weight, which always tends to burn through time and energy currencies, and it gets used up and we have nothing left. So we avoid that here. We call it out, we stay ahead of it. So I'm going to show you how this classroom works. Let me share my screen. Okay, Chrome tab window. Uh, all right, let me share my screen here. All right, hopefully you can see this. So when you go into the school community, it's always going to take you here to this community page. You're going to click on the classroom, and you are going to have access to this Strong and Lean for Life system. In this membership, you have access to this one, this system muscle challenge, this lean system fat loss challenge, the anti inflammatory system, and the nervous system support. For everybody else, it's locked. So we're going to start here. And then this just tells you how to ask a question. Ideally, unless something is confidential, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions within the community because it's likely somebody else will benefit from your question and the answer to your question. When we collectively sort of bring things to the table and problem solve together, the solutions tend to be so much more efficient and collaborative, and everyone just feels comforted like they're not alone. We're going to go through some quick lessons. They're usually about 2 minutes. There's one that's up to 7 minutes that just sort of helps to explain the why, the what, and the how of what we're doing. I know some women, they don't need to know the why, they just want to be told what to do, and that's fine. Other women really want to understand the mechanism behind why we are doing certain practices. I'm like that. I'm very cerebral. I need to understand why. It needs to make sense to my brain before I start to do it. So we go over this in the foundations. And then we're going to start talking about how to properly structure your strength training and your reps and your technique in order to hit those type 2 muscle fibers for muscle growth. We're going to actively train to grow the muscle because we're actively trying to counteract muscle loss as we age. It's our muscle loss as we age is starting to accelerate. It's just a normal thing of life. But in order to stay strong, feel energized, support our immune system, support our mood, support our wonky hormones, we're going to have to actively counteract that muscle loss. And that is with a specific type of strength training. We're going to go over how to build your plate, where I go over food selections and portions. And then this is a measurement tracker, a word on tracking. For some women, tracking is extremely helpful to see progress. The brain likes to see progress. It sort of serves as encouragement to keep going. For others, tracking things like body part measurements or even scale weight can be triggering. It can be emotionally hijacking. For those, I want you to just avoid that for now and just sort of take a mental note or jot down on your phone simply energy scores and sleep quality. That's all I want you to do. You don't have to buy a wearable. That can be helpful data, but it's really based on what you do with the data. Sometimes the numbers tend to trip us up, and depending on if you have a sort of a obsessive compulsive personality, which is fine, we don't want to trigger that because it's just going to lead to cognitive overload. And we need to do only low effort things with high return on investment in order to stay within our bandwidth, in order to keep going, in order to keep going with our system so they start running on autopilot. So that's the note about the tracker. And then we have our electronic tracker. So same as a challenge. You're going to get to go in here and pick what you are tracking for the week. Keeping in mind, this is a tracker, it is not a checklist. Checklists can be helpful, but they tend to get overwhelming. So, what we're going to do is really dial in for that week what is going to move the needle for us. So, for week one, all I have is, it needs to be ridiculously simple to the point where it's so easy that you're saying, this is easy. What else more can I do? Because the opposite is we try to do too much. It never turns out how we want. And then we end up feeling disappointed. That takes a knock on our confidence. When confidence is low, that's not a great predictor for change. So we really want to keep things easy, obtainable, so that our confidence increases and then we keep going. We don't quit. So the first week would just be to watch the lessons, decide if you're planning to track and measure, and then complete your custom meal form. You send me some of your details, and I'm going to send you a customized meal guide based on your goals. And then week two, this is just my suggestions. What we're going to do is within the community chat thread, we're going to talk about what action items, what homework for you to work on that week, items that are going to help you move the needle for that week. For some women, it's going to be lowering procrastination for workouts. For other women, it's going to be more of a how to make meal building and sort of batch prepping feel less labor intensive and doable. Remember, things are hard in the beginning, effort feels very high. Over time, effort starts to get lower, and then your results start to accelerate past that effort level. And then so let's go back to and then always in the background is going to be your 15-minute per day strength training. If you miss a day, it's fine. You don't need to catch up the following day. You can if you have enough time and energy. But similarly to our 10-day challenge, we're going to have a 15-minute per day session that seems to be the sweet spot to lower friction and to really lend to consistency. Consistency is the one thing that moves the needle. So, a lot of women felt like if they didn't have time for their 30, 45-minute, 1 hour long workout, it wasn't worth it to even do anything. I'm going to encourage you guys, if you don't have 15 minutes, you do something for 5 minutes and I will help you figure out what to do because those deposits, as tiny as they are still considered deposits into your health bank where actually your results and your gains compound on the other end. So that's going to be month 1, which we're starting today. And then starting in March, we are going to really dive deep into building muscle, making the muscle grow. Why? Because once we have muscle on board, it makes everything else go faster and easier. Your energy levels will go up, your metabolism will be flexible, your body will be more resilient to sickness, colds, injury, stress. Once your body is more resilient, then we can start to look at calorie cutting. Calorie cutting, even done in a sustainable, practical manner, is stressful on the body. The body will try to fight you. So, when we have muscle on board, it makes things go so much easier just because your body is not as sensitive to these calorie fluctuations and the sort of it's able to maintain energy and strength levels despite the calorie reduction. And that is how we're going to sustainably lose fat rather than losing fat and muscle, which is typically what a lot of diets have us doing with the high calorie cutting and not having enough time or energy for your workouts. We want to avoid that. So, April is going to be a great month to work on fat loss and dialing in your calories. In May, we're going to go over gut health and anti inflammation. There's always going to be muscle building running in the background. When you have a bulletproof gut, everything else tends to fall into place too. Your mood, your immune system, your ability to build muscle. And then June and July tend to be really busy months for women. Travel, caregiving, routines that are thrown off for the 2 months. So we're going to focus on the nervous system to really help us manage stress this month. It's less about relaxation. Relaxation is great, but it's more about consciously and proactively managing our stress. And we're going to continue to build muscle in the background. Any nutrition choices we have is going to lend to building muscle and reducing inflammation. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Um, so every single month, the theme will be based on challenge. Why challenges? Because challenges are fun. And what's happening here? Okay. So every single theme is going to be a challenge. Why challenges? Challenges are fun. They add an extra layer of competition and energy. You can invite your friends to join the membership for that month, or you can find someone who is already in the membership, partner up with them for an extra layer of accountability. Um, the call schedule, we're going to have live calls like this that are going to be recorded. So if you can't make it to the call, if you are in the membership, you get access to the replays. The calls are going to be once or twice a month. I'm going to go over a topic or a lesson that's relevant for you that month, as well as frequently asked questions. We're going to have some cool speakers like my pelvic floor physical therapist come and guest speak and guest teach. And I have some other amazing experts that I'm stoked about. I'm going to be lining them up too. So stay tuned. And then with that, I will see you in the community. I'm stoked to get this started. And let's get strong and lean for life together. Bye, everyone.